"That area's off limits, ma'am. You'll need to move away from the door." The words came from a young voice still a bit rough from youth but sharp with the clear confidence that a new uniform and a hint of power often bring. Sophia Brown paused, her hand just shy of the Marine Corps Exchange's glass entrance. She slowly turned, her eyes level and calm. A lance corporal stood facing her, his chest thrust out, an M4 rifle resting casually but ready across his front. His camouflage uniform looked brand new, the material still stiff. He looked no older than 19. "I'm just going in," Sophia stated, her voice steady and completely unbothered. She raised her Department of Defense ID, marking her as a retired service member. "I'm authorized to be here." The young Marine narrowed his eyes, glancing from the picture to her. Sophia recognized that expression, a blend of doubt and protocol, a task he clearly hadn't mastered. She was a blonde woman, likely in her late 30s, dressed in faded jeans and in a plain gray t-shirt beneath a vibrant red leather jacket. She didn't match the image he expected. "This is a veteran's ID," he announced, as if she didn't know. "It allows base access, gets you into the exchange, but it doesn't get you into the uniform store during restocking. That's only for active duty right now." "I understand," Sophia replied. "The sign on the door indicates it's open." The lance corporal's jaw clenched. He was losing his grip on the situation and didn't appreciate it. "The sign is incorrect. I'm informing you of the current rule. Ma'am, please step away." He nodded his chin towards the wider walkway. A dismissive tilt of his head. A few people passing by, other Marines in uniform, families with shopping bags, began to slow, drawn by the hushed argument. Sophia remained still, a perfect image of calm endurance. This wasn't a new experience. It was a well-known routine of quick judgments and necessary explanations. Her quiet, modest presence was often misread as frailty or bewilderment. Few made that error a second time, but the initial encounter was always tiresome. The young Marine, whom we'll call Miller, interpreted her quietness as stubborn defiance. "Did you hear me, ma'am?" His voice climbed, pulling more eyes their way. "You need to move." From nearby, his fire team partner, a slightly older corporal named Davis, casually walked over. "What's going on, Miller?" "This woman believes her husband's ID grants her access to restricted zones," Miller declared, his voice carrying to the growing crowd. "I informed her it's for authorized personnel only." He hadn't even noticed the retired designation on her card, his mind seemingly shutting down at the sight of a civilian woman questioning his power. Sophia's eyes moved to Davis. She stayed silent, allowing Miller's claim to linger. This was a familiar slight, a convenient way to dismiss women. It was simpler for them to see her as someone attached to service, a dependent, not a leader in her own right. Davis, at least, took the card from Miller and genuinely examined it. He noted the name Brown, Sophia. Then he saw the rank under her picture, Sergeant Major. His eyes widened slightly, but a flicker of doubt instantly took hold. A sergeant major? This unassuming woman in a leather jacket? It simply didn't make sense. Sergeant majors were mythical figures, seasoned and tough, their very presence carrying the weight of years of tradition. They were almost always men. He'd never encountered a female sergeant major who appeared as if she belonged on a fitness magazine. "This isn't an uncommon ID, ma'am," Davis stated, his voice more hesitant than Miller's. He aimed to be diplomatic, to ease the tension while maintaining control. "We encounter many fakes, quite convincing ones. Would you object if we verified it, just to confirm?" "Go ahead," Sophia responded, her hands now resting lightly in her jacket pockets. Her stance seemed relaxed, but it allowed her fingers to brush against the cool, star-shaped metal tucked away in a secret compartment, a quiet echo of another time, another existence. Miller scoffed, yanking the card back. "Yes, we'll run it, and you'll stay put right here. Don't move." He marched to a small guard station 20 feet away, a little building holding a scanner and computer. Davis stayed with Sophia, shifting his weight uneasily, clearly bothered by the public scene. The crowd was expanding. A gunnery sergeant, whose arm bore many rank insignia, paused, arms folded, observing the unfolding drama. Two young lieutenants, fresh from initial training, lingered near the food court, feigning interest in their phones. This was turning into quite a show, so Davis began to bridge the uncomfortable quiet. "You served in the Corps?" he asked, his tone similar to inquiring about a summer job from years past. I did, Sophia confirmed. What was your MOs? He pushed. A common question designed to expose fakes. 0369, she replied instantly. Infantry unit leader. Davis blinked. That was a combat role. He scrutinized her again. Slender, yet with a noticeable resilient strength in her forearms and in the curve of her shoulders. Still an infantry sergeant major? Women had only recently completed infantry training. The dates didn't align in his mind, and his suspicion intensified. Right, he uttered, a single word heavy with doubt. Miller returned from the small building, a triumphant grin on his face. Well, what do you know? The system confirms it's a valid ID, shows you retired last year. He slapped the card against his palm. But you know, systems can be breached. Things can be fabricated. An infantry sergeant major? That's quite a stretch, ma'am. He savored the moment, playing the role of guardian, protecting the Corps' honor from what he saw as deception. Each word heightened the tension. Every movement was a deliberate act for the crowd he'd gathered. Let me ask you something, Miller began, leaning closer, his voice dropping to a low, menacing whisper. You know that falsely wearing rank and insignia is a federal crime, correct? Pretending to be a sergeant major. The genuine ones don't appreciate that. We could have PMO here in 5 minutes. PMO, the Provost Marshal's office. Military police. It was a clear warning. He was charging her with an offense. Sophia's face remained impassive, but a flicker of something in her eyes changed. A deep, heavy weariness. She had endured ambushes in the Sandan Valley, roadside bombs in Fallujah, and the tough internal struggles of senior enlisted life. Now, under the warm sun of a calm Tuesday on the base at home, she was being threatened by a young man reeking of false confidence and energy drink. Miller's eyes fell on her jacket again, its vibrant red starkly standing out against the surrounding uniforms. He reached out, his finger nearly brushing the leather, then pulled back. Nice jacket, he sneered, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Very practical. That almost touch, that scornful tone, ignited something within her. Not a flash of anger, but a memory from another time, another place. It was a sudden echo, a phantom feeling, the thick, stifling air of a hangar, not in North Carolina, but in Afghanistan. The unfamiliar weight of her dress blues after a year in camouflage. The polite clapping of high-ranking officers, a 4-star general, his chest adorned with countless ribbons, stepping forward. The cool, weighty silk of a blue ribbon settling around her neck, the substantial 5-pointed star and golden eagle resting just below her collarbone. She recalled the silence that followed, deeper than any blast. She remembered her unit, the ones who survived, later gathering their funds to buy her that red leather jacket. So we can always find you in a crowd, Gunny, her platoon sergeant had said, his voice heavy with feeling. They hadn't used her new rank yet. To them she was still their own. The jacket wasn't about style, it was a tribute, a safeguard. Back in the moment, the sun warmed her face. The flashback ended. Miller's words droned on, a meaningless hum, but across the walkway, the gunnery sergeant who had been observing, Reyes, pushed off the wall. He was a career Marine, his face etched with the marks of many deployments. He hadn't truly noticed until he heard Miller speak the name aloud to his partner during the initial ID check. Checking a Sophia M. Brown, Miller had stated, just loud enough for the silent Gunny to catch. The name stopped him cold. Brown, Sergeant Major Sophia Brown. Impossible. Not the Sophia Brown, the hero of Firebase Kilo, the very legend they used to sober up new lieutenants. He had been a staff sergeant at Regional Command when her Medal of Honor paperwork arrived. He'd read the commendation himself, feeling a chill as the dry official words described an act of unbelievable bravery. He watched Miller harass her, witnessing the arrogance, the complete and utter cluelessness of the two young Marines. A wave of dread mixed with intense anger washed over him. This was more than an error, it was an insult. Reyes didn't approach, he didn't shout. That would only draw more attention and further embarrass a woman who had already faced more than 10 Marines combined. Instead, he retreated into the nearby shadows of an alcove, pulled out his phone, and dialed a number from his speed dial. His thumb quivered slightly, not from fear but from a powerful mix of adrenaline and profound respect. The call connected on the second ring. Sergeant Major's office. "This is Gunnery Sergeant Reyes," he stated, his voice hushed and urgent. "I need to speak with the base Sergeant Major. This is a critical emergency." A pause. "Gunny, the Sergeant Major is in a meeting with the commanding officer." "I don't care if he's meeting with the commandant himself," Reyes interrupted, his voice rough like stone. "Tell him that Lance Corporal Miller and Corporal Davis are presently harassing Sergeant Major Sophia Brown outside the main exchange. Tell him I mentioned her name. He'll grasp the seriousness." He ended the call. Help was on the way. The two young Marines, basking in their assumed power, had no clue about the fury about to descend upon them. Inside the base's main office building, a pristine, hushed space, with gleaming floors and pictures of former leaders, Base Sergeant Major Evans heard the hurried whisper from his aide. He was a colossal man, forged from stone and strict discipline, seldom showing feeling. But as his aide delivered Reyes's message, the Sergeant Major's face first went blank with surprise, then solidified into an expression of intense anger. "Repeat that name," he ordered, his voice a deep growl. "Sophia M. Brown, Sergeant Major." Evans stood so abruptly, his chair screeched across the floor. The colonel in charge of the base, who had been mid-sentence discussing money problems, paused, looking startled. "Sir," Evans stated, his voice strained, barely containing his fury, "we have an urgent matter at the main exchange. We must leave now." "What is it, Sergeant Major?" the colonel inquired, rising. "Display the service record for Sergeant Major Sophia M. Brown, retired." Evans snapped at his aide, who was already typing with frantic speed. The file instantly appeared on a large wall screen. The colonel's gaze swept over the information. A record of assignments that mirrored the history of the global conflict on terror. A long list of commendations. Purple Heart with 2 stars, Bronze Star with Valor, Navy and Marine Corps Commendation Medal. And then, at the very top, the single award that overshadowed all others, the Medal of Honor. The colonel's breath caught. He read the summary displayed beneath the award. Firebase Kilo Sangen District. Repelled a complex ambush, single-handedly defended a casualty collection point for 3 hours. He looked at Sergeant Major Evans, his face ashen. Is she the one they call the Ghost of Sangen?" "She is, sir," Evans confirmed, snatching his cover from its hook. "And 2 of our newest Marines are treating her like an intruder." The colonel needed no further explanation. "Get the vehicles, let's move." Back at the exchange, Miller had reached the peak of his hubris. Finding no evidence for his hacked ID theory, he shifted to a new tactic: bureaucratic bullying. "Look, ma'am, I don't know who you are, but you've created a disturbance," he announced, his chest expanding. "You're being disorderly. I'm instructing you to depart the base. Your access is suspended pending an inquiry. Give me the ID card." This was his ultimate, disastrous mistake. As a lance corporal, he held no power to revoke anyone's base access. Certainly not a retired sergeant major's. He was fabricating rules, intoxicated by the crowd's focus. Sophia finally removed her hands from her pockets. She gazed at him, and for the first time, a look other than patience crossed her features. It was a deep, painful compassion. "Son," she stated, her voice soft but resonating with great significance, "you need to stop speaking immediately." But Miller had gone too far. "Give me the card, or I'm contacting PMO to have you escorted off in handcuffs for causing a public disturbance and refusing a lawful command." It was at that exact moment that the soft sound of tires sliced through the air. 2 black government sedans and a matte green Humvee glided into the parking lot, stopping with military precision mere feet from the evolving situation. The crowd parted instantly, like a wave. Doors opened simultaneous. Out stepped the base commander, a full colonel whose commanding presence seemed to distort the very air around him. Beside him was the base sergeant major, his face grim as a storm cloud. They were trailed by a small group, including a sharp-witted female captain, the base's public affairs officer. They moved as one, their heels striking the pavement with a crisp, imposing rhythm. The entire scene froze. Miller and Davis whipped their heads toward the arriving officers, their mouths gaping, faces drained of color. They appeared like monuments of absolute fear. The colonel and the sergeant major completely disregarded them, their attention fixed solely on Sophia. They walked straight to her, their steps quick and determined, stopping precisely 3 feet away. Then, in a motion so precise and synchronized it felt audible, the colonel and the sergeant major snapped to attention, delivering the most deeply respectful salute Sophia had witnessed in years. Their right hands cut sharply through the air, touching the brims of their covers, their bodies stiff, their eyes fixed on her with an expression of pure, unwavering respect. A unified gasp rippled through the onlookers. Sergeant Major Brown. The sergeant major's voice resonated, bouncing across the now silent concourse. "Ma'am, it is a profound honor to have you on our installation." The colonel lowered his salute. "Ma'am," he spoke, his voice imbued with profound earnestness. "On behalf of every Marine at this facility, I apologize for the reception you've endured. It is utterly disgraceful." He then turned, his gaze finding Miller and Davis, who appeared on the verge of collapse. The colonel's stare wasn't heated, it was glacial. It was a look known to dismantle careers. He didn't address them directly. Not yet. He faced the crowd again, his voice rising to address everyone present. "Many of you were still in elementary school when the events at Firebase Kilo occurred," he began. "But you must know its story. You must know the heroes of our course." He gestured to the sergeant major, who pulled a plain laminated card from his pocket. He cleared his throat and began to read. "The President of the United States of America, authorized by an act of Congress, March 3, 1863, has bestowed in the name of Congress the Medal of Honor upon Gunnery Sergeant Sophia Brown, United States Marine Corps, for exceptional bravery and fearlessness at the risk of her life, far exceeding the call of duty." The words struck the hushed crowd like powerful blows. While operating as a platoon sergeant in the Sandin district, Afghanistan, Gunnery Sergeant Brown's patrol was caught in an ambush by a far larger enemy force. With her platoon leader and platoon sergeant killed in the first moments, she took charge, putting herself in the path of intense machine gun and rocket-propelled grenade fire. She moved between defensive spots, reshaping the defense and directing gunfire. When the casualty site was attacked, she alone positioned her body between the incoming rounds and 3 injured Marines, suffering numerous shrapnel wounds, while still firing back and providing medical help. For 3 relentless hours, she fought off repeated enemy attacks. Her actions were directly responsible for saving the lives of 7 Marines and preventing her platoon from being overwhelmed. As the sergeant major spoke, Marines in the crowd, from the newest private to the most senior master gunnery sergeant, began to stand taller. Their hands, previously in pockets or on phones, dropped to their sides. Their casual interest shifted into expressions of deep admiration and reverence. Some older veterans in the crowd, men with their own faded tattoos and battle scars, quietly offered their own salute. When the commendation concluded, a silence even more profound settled over the area. It was a sacred quiet. The sergeant major folded the card and put it away. The colonel finally directed his complete attention to the 2 frozen young Marines. His voice was dangerously soft. "You 2 will report to my office in 1 hour. You will be in your service uniforms. You will bring your corporal of the guard and your platoon sergeant. You will bring your company first sergeant and your company command, and you will be ready to explain why you believed it was your right to publicly shame a recipient of our nation's highest award for bravery." He paused, allowing his words to utterly defeat them. "You failed to follow rules. You failed to show respect. But most importantly, you failed to see the Marine standing before you. You saw a woman in a jacket. You saw what you anticipated. You are an embarrassment to that uniform." He turned back to Sophia, his expression immediately softening. "Ma'am, anything you require." Sophia raised a hand. "Sir," she stated, her voice at last breaking its silent restraint, not with rage, but with the unwavering authority of a natural leader. She looked straight at Miller and Davis. "The rules are not the issue," she declared, her words a teaching moment for all listening. "The rules keep us safe. The issue is bias. You didn't fail because the regulations are too tough. You failed because you used them unfairly. You looked at me and jumped to a conclusion. A true leader, a true Marine, checks facts. They don't guess. They examine the ID. They look at the individual. and they treat everyone with the respect that is the foundation of our Corps. Don't lower the standards, just learn to apply them equally to everyone, no matter how they appear. As she spoke, another vivid, intense memory tore through her mind. The scent of gunpowder and metal, the cry of an injured Marine, a boy no older than Miller, his leg a horrific mess, the sharp impact of enemy bullets hitting the earth mere inches from her head as she knelt beside him, her hands sticky with his blood, her own body shielding him. She was yelling, her voice raw, "Stay with me, Marine, stay with me." She remembered the look in his eyes, fear giving way to a spark of hope, because she was there, because she had not deserted him. The medal wasn't for the combat, it was for the deep, protective bond she felt for the Marines by her side. The moment faded. She was back in the sunlight outside the exchange. She had delivered her teaching. Her mission, it seemed, was endless. In the following weeks, the exchange incident transformed into a cautionary tale told quietly across the base. Lance Corporal Miller and Corporal Davis received formal punishment, a written reprimand added to their service records that would shadow them for their entire career. Yet the discipline was less significant than the lesson learned. The base commander ordered a base-wide refresher training on professional behavior, ID verification methods, and the specific history of women in combat role. Images of pioneering women, including a formal smiling picture of Sergeant Major Sophia Brown, started to appear on the walls of unit offices. The changes were official, but the deepest impact was individual. Roughly a month later, Sophia was at the base gym, completing a set of pull-ups in a secluded spot. She felt completely at ease, the familiar clatter of weights and the scent of sweat a comforting reminder of her past life. A shadow fell over her. She finished her exercise, lowered herself to the floor, and turned. It was Miller, dressed in gym clothes. He looked smaller and younger without his uniform and swagger. He fidgeted with a towel in his hands, his gaze fixed on the ground. "Ma'am," he started, his voice barely audible. "Sergeant Major Brown." Sophia waited, taking a drink from her water bottle. I just wanted to apologize," he stuttered, finally meeting her eyes. They held a raw, genuine shame. "There's no justification for my behavior, or my words. I was arrogant, and I was mistaken. I'm truly sorry. I showed disrespect to you, and to the uniform I wear." Sophia observed him for a long moment. She saw the young man he was, not the proud, overconfident figure he had tried to be. She recognized the possibility for him to grow into the Marine he was meant to become. "I accept your apology, Lance Corporal," she said simply. There was no hint of looking down on him, only a calm, conclusive tone. She started to return to her exercise, but then paused. "Miller," she called, and he looked up, surprised she knew his name. "Your duty out there is to protect. A true protector doesn't just seek out dangers, they also search for heroes, and those are much harder to recognize. Keep that in mind." He nodded, unable to speak. The impact of her kindness felt deeper than any penalty. He watched as she turned back to the pull-up bar, her movements graceful and powerful. He was only a young Marine at the start of his path, and he had just received guidance from a living legend he had been too ignorant to see. It was a lesson he would cherish forever. If this tale of courage and honor resonated with you, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel Untold Valor Stories, and share it to pay tribute to all our country's heroes. We'll catch you next time.